You know those people who seem to bend reality? Flights are sold out, but they get a seat. Rules are vague, but they find a way through. Everyone else says, that's impossible. And somehow they just make it happen. They're not always the smartest in the room, but they're the ones the room ends up following. That's not luck. That's high agency thinking. High agency is the difference between, I guess that's how it is, and, okay, how do we change it? Operators, people who reliably get things done in messy, real-world conditions, live inside that mindset. They don't wait for perfect information, permission, or ideal timing. They make decisions, they learn fast, and they adjust without drama. In this video, we're going to unpack exactly how they do it, the mental frameworks, the questions they ask, and the way they move through uncertainty so you can start operating that way in your own life and work. Before we dive into frameworks and tactics, let's define the game. High agency thinking doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring reality. It means refusing to outsource control of your life to circumstances, institutions, or other people. Operators don't say, I can't. They say, given these constraints, what can I still do? Across this video, we'll break down how high agency thinkers perceive problems, generate options, make decisions under uncertainty, and execute without getting paralyzed. I'll share real examples from operators in business, sports, and everyday life, plus simple exercises you can start using tonight. If you're serious about becoming the kind of person who gets things done, even when the path forward isn't obvious, stick around until the end, because I'll walk through a step-by-step routine you can plug directly into your week. And if this kind of content is useful, consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss upcoming deep dives. Let's start with what high agency thinking actually is. At its core, agency is the belief, backed by behavior, that your actions can meaningfully influence outcomes. High agency people don't assume the game is rigged. They assume there's a move, even if they haven't seen it yet. Contrast that with low agency thinking. The market is bad. My boss won't let me. The algorithm hates me. It's not that those factors don't matter. It's that low agency thinkers treat them as final. High agency operators treat them as inputs. They ask, given this reality, what leverage do I still have? What experiment could I run? Who could I talk to? What rule is real? And what rule is just a norm nobody questions anymore? The key shift is from story to strategy. Instead of narrating why things are hard, high agency thinkers immediately translate constraints into decision points and potential moves. The first habit of an operator is how they see problems. Most people see problems as walls. High agency thinkers see them as maps, signals telling them where they are, what's blocked, and where opportunity might hide. When something goes wrong, low agency thinking asks, why is this happening to me? High agency thinking asks, what is this telling me? What's the real bottleneck? They separate facts from stories. Fact, the project is late. Story, our team is incompetent. A high agency operator instead asks, where is the delay actually created? Requirements, approval, execution. They're relentlessly specific. Instead of, we're bad at marketing, it becomes, our landing page doesn't convert. Our offer isn't clear. Our channel mix is random. Specific problems are solvable. Vague problems are paralyzing. This diagnostic mindset is the first decision skill. Before choosing an action, they decide what game they're truly playing and what's actually in the way. Once an operator understands the real problem, they don't jump straight into a single solution. They generate options. High agency thinking treats options as a form of power. The more viable paths you can see, the less trapped you feel. Most people get stuck in binary thinking: quit or stay, launch or don't, hire or fire. Operators resist that. They ask, what are 5 ways we could solve this? Change scope, change timeline, change who owns it, change the constraints, partner instead of build, sequence steps differently. This isn't brainstorming for creativity's sake. It's strategic. By seeing multiple moves, they can 1. Compare trade-offs, 2.
avoid overcommitting to the first idea. And 3, keep momentum even when plan A fails. The habit to build. When you feel boxed in, refuse to stop at 2 options. Write down at least 5. Even if 3 are bad, the exercise forces your brain out of the trap of false either-or decisions.
High-agency operators make decisions under uncertainty by using lightweight mental models, not waiting for perfect data. One of their favorites is expected value, combining probability with impact. They'll ask, if this works, how big is the upside? If it fails, what's the real downside? Instead of obsessing over, well, will this definitely work? They think, is this asymmetric? Small cost, potentially large gain? That's how they justify cold emails, small experiments, prototype launches, low-risk bets with meaningful upside. They also think in reversibility. Is this decision one-way or two-way? If it's reversible, like testing a new headline, trying a new routine, shipping a small feature, they move fast and correct later. If it's hard to reverse, like firing a key hire or selling the company, they slow down, gather more data, and stress test assumptions. This combination, expected value plus reversibility, lets them act quickly where it's safe and carefully where it truly matters. High-agency thinkers don't just decide what to do, they decide where to push. They look for leverage, small actions that create outsized effects. This is where operators differ sharply from hard workers who stay stuck. They ask questions like, what's the 10% of effort that drives 90% of results? Who already has the distribution, credibility, or resources I need? What constraint, if removed, would unlock everything else? Instead of manually doing something 1,000 times, they'll look for a way to automate it once, or design a system where it happens automatically. Instead of convincing people one by one, they'll find the one person whose buy-in flips the whole group. In practice, this means mapping systems, understanding how money, information, and decisions flow through a situation. Once they see the system, they stop pushing randomly and start pushing precisely on the few points where pressure actually changes the outcome. A huge misconception. High-agency people aren't fearless, they're just calibrated. They relate to risk differently. Where low-agency thinkers see a vague cloud of danger, operators dissect risk into components: likelihood, severity, visibility, and recoverability. They'll ask, what exactly can go wrong? How likely is each scenario? What's the worst-case outcome, and can I survive it? Often, the honest worst case is embarrassment, a small financial hit, or a few weeks of wasted effort, not life-destroying catastrophe. Then they design guardrails, caps on time or money invested, predefined stop conditions, or small tests before big commitments. This lets them move forward without pretending risk doesn't exist. As a result, they end up taking more shots, but smarter ones. Over time, the compounding effect of many thoughtful bets, even with some failures, massively outperforms a lifetime of playing not to lose. Timing kills more good ideas than bad strategy. Operators understand the art of when. High-agency thinking isn't just about acting, it's about sequencing actions so reality has time to respond. They think in terms of feedback loops. What can I do this week that will produce a signal I can learn from? Instead of disappearing for 6 months to build a perfect product, they ship a rough version in 4 weeks, talk to customers, and adjust. They're also ruthless about momentum. If a decision is reversible and low stakes, they'd rather make it today and iterate than debate for weeks. A slow, technically correct decision that stalls learning is often worse than a fast, imperfect one that reveals information. You can copy this by shortening your planning horizon. Rather than designing your next 5 years, design your next 5 experiments. Each one small enough to run quickly, but pointed in the direction you want to go. Information is raw material for decisions, and high-agency operators are strategic about how they gather it. They don't passively scroll and call it research. They design information runs, short, targeted efforts to reduce uncertainty. They ask, what is the single most important unknown blocking this decision? Then, what experiment, conversation, or data point could most quickly shrink that uncertainty? Maybe it's emailing 3 customers, talking to a domain expert, or running a $50 ad test. Crucially, they favor direct information over second-hand takes. Instead of arguing about what users might want, they get on a call. Instead of debating if a habit is sustainable, they run it for 7 days and observe. This approach turns the world into a lab. Every action becomes a probe that feeds the next decision. Over time, their intuitions become sharper, not because they were born wise, but because they've run more, better experiments. Even the best decision is useless without follow-through. Operators treat execution as a design problem, not a willpower contest. They proactively make decisions easier to stick to. First, they reduce friction, putting key tasks on the calendar, breaking projects into atomic steps, and ensuring the next action is always obvious. Second, they design environments that support the plan, physical setups, default tools, and social accountability. They also separate thinking time from doing time. They decide in advance what matters this week, then protect execution blocks where they simply run the script. Fewer midstream debates, more finished work. Finally, they track a small set of leading indicators, actions they control, not outcomes they don't. Instead of obsessing over revenue, they track sales calls made. Instead of fixating on weight, they track workouts and meals. High agency isn't about heroic bursts. It's about building decision-aligned systems that quietly compound. To really understand high-agency decision-making, look at how operators handle failure. When a bet doesn't pay off, low-agency thinking says, "See, I shouldn't have tried." High-agency thinking says, "Tuition paid. What did I just buy?" They run post-mortems without drama. What did we expect? What actually happened? Where was our model of reality wrong? Was the decision bad, or just the outcome? That distinction matters. A good decision with a bad outcome is still worth repeating, if the odds are right. They also capture reusable assets from failures, new skills, relationships, checklists, or warning signs. A campaign that flopped might still give you a better understanding of your audience, or a refined process for next time. Because they metabolize failure into information and assets, operators can take bolder swings without becoming cynical or reckless. Every decision, win or lose, feeds the next one. So, how do you actually become more high agency? Let's translate all of this into a weekly routine. A decision gym. First, run a constraint audit. Pick one area of your life or work that feels stuck and list every reason you think it's blocked. Then mark which are hard constraints, physics, laws, versus soft ones, norms, assumptions, preferences. Second, for that same area, generate 5 options you haven't tried yet. Force yourself past the first 2 obvious answers. Third, pick one low-cost, reversible experiment you can run in the next 7 days to test a key assumption. Put it on your calendar with a specific time. Fourth, schedule a 20-minute weekly operator review where you ask, what did I learn? What surprised me? What's the highest leverage move next week? This simple loop, constraints, options, experiment, review, will quietly rewire how you think and decide. Let's zoom out and lock in the key ideas. High agency thinking starts with belief, but it's expressed through behavior, treating constraints as inputs, not verdicts. Operators define problems precisely, so they're actually solvable. They generate multiple options instead of getting stuck in false binaries. They use simple mental models, expected value, reversibility, leverage, to move fast where it's safe and slow where it's truly costly. They sequence decisions as experiments, shortening feedback loops so reality can teach them quickly. They're intentional about information gathering, preferring direct signals over speculation. They design systems for execution so decisions don't die in their calendar. And when things fail, they conduct calm post-mortems, harvest the lessons,
and roll them forward. Most importantly, they practice. High agency isn't a personality trait. It's a skill you grow by repeatedly asking, "What can I still do?" and then proving to yourself that your actions really do move the needle.
If you've watched this far, you're already behaving like a high agency thinker. You're investing attention to upgrade how you operate. Your next move is to turn this from an interesting idea into a lived practice. Pick one area of your life that feels stuck: career, project, health, relationships. Tonight, run the 4-step loop we discussed: constraint audit, 5 new options, 1 low-cost experiment, and a calendar slot for your weekly operator review. If you want ongoing support building this mindset, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. I share deep dives like this on mental models, execution, and building a life you actually steer, not just endure. Also, drop a comment with one experiment you're committing to this week. Writing it down publicly increases your odds of following through, and you might inspire someone else's next move. Remember, you don't need permission to start operating differently. You just need to take the next deliberate step.